At Westbridge Academy, Chase thought pushing the new black girl into the mud would be the easiest laugh of his life. Big mistake. Nia Coleman didn't scream, didn't cry, and didn't beg for sympathy. She simply stood up, covered in mud, and started counting every phone, every camera, and every lie around her. 5 minutes later, the boy who thought he owned the school realized he had picked the wrong target. Stay until the end, because this ending will not disappoint you. Westbridge Academy was the kind of school that looked perfect from the outside. Its red brick building stood tall behind iron gates. Its banners proudly displayed academic awards. And its students walked the campus, wearing expensive clothes and confident smiles. To outsiders, it looked like a place where opportunities were created and futures were built. But beneath that polished image, there were rules that were never written down. Everyone knew who had power, who could get away with anything, and who was expected to stay silent. On a gray Monday morning, the campus was still wet from a heavy storm that had passed through the night before. Large puddles covered parts of the entrance road, and patches of mud lined the edges of the walkway leading toward the main building. Students carefully stepped around them as they hurried to class. Some chatted with friends, others stared at their phones. Nobody paid much attention to the girl walking alone through the front gate. Nia Coleman adjusted the strap of her worn backpack and continued forward without slowing down. She wore a simple white shirt, blue jeans, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days compared to the designer brands surrounding her. She looked completely out of place, yet there was something unusual about her. She didn't seem nervous. She didn't look around searching for approval. She simply walked with a calm confidence that made people notice her even more. Several students glanced at her and whispered among themselves, "Must be the new girl. Probably here on scholarship. She definitely doesn't look like she belongs here." Nia heard some of the comments but ignored them. She had learned long ago that not every voice deserved a response. Unfortunately, someone else had noticed her too. Near the center of the courtyard stood Chase Whitmore, the most feared student in Westbridge Academy. Tall, athletic, and surrounded by people who laughed at every joke he made. Chase carried himself like someone who owned the school. In many ways, he practically did. His father funded half the school's athletic programs, and everyone knew administrators treated him differently because of it. Standing beside him were Derek Hale and Mason Price. His closest friends and loyal followers. Derek nudged Chase and nodded toward Nia. "That's the new girl." Chase followed his gaze. For several seconds, he simply watched her. Most transfer students arrived looking terrified. They avoided eye contact. They kept their heads down. They practically announced their weakness before anyone even spoke to them. Nia wasn't doing any of that. She walked straight ahead, as if nobody around her mattered. Something about that irritated Chase immediately. "Interesting," he said with a smirk. The three boys stepped directly into Nia's path. She stopped. The crowd around them slowed down instinctively. Everyone knew what happened when Chase decided to entertain himself. "Can I help you?" Nia asked calmly. Derek laughed. "Actually, we're wondering if you need directions." Mason grinned. "Yeah. Community college is 3 miles that way." Several nearby students chuckled. Nia remained expressionless. Chase folded his arms. "You sure you're in the right place? Westbridge isn't exactly known for accepting just anyone." The meaning behind his words wasn't subtle. A few students exchanged uncomfortable looks, but nobody said anything. Nia met his eyes. "I checked the address before I came." A few people unexpectedly laughed. For the first time, Chase's smile tightened. He wasn't used to people answering back, especially not calmly, especially not on their first day. Before he could respond, another voice quietly spoke from nearby. "Leave her alone." Everyone turned. Lena Brooks immediately regretted opening her mouth. She stood frozen near the entrance steps, clutching her books against her chest. The moment Chase looked at her, Fear flashed across her face. Months earlier, Lena had become one of his favorite targets. The memory still haunted her. Chase stared at her for a second before smiling. Not a friendly smile. The kind that promised consequences later. Lena lowered her eyes immediately. The warning had been received. Chase turned back toward Nia. You should get better friends. Nia glanced briefly toward Lena. She noticed the fear. She noticed the silence from everyone else. And she noticed something even more important. Nobody was surprised this was happening. That told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a system, a game Chase had played many times before. Then, something caught Chase's attention. Just a few feet away from the walkway sat a large, muddy puddle left behind by the storm. It stretched across part of the pavement and looked impossible to avoid if someone lost their balance. A slow smile spread across his face. Derek saw it immediately. So, that's what you're thinking. Mason laughed under his breath. Oh, that's good. Nia followed their eyes toward the puddle. For a brief moment, nobody spoke. The crowd sensed something was about to happen. Phones slowly began appearing in students' hands. People weren't preparing to help. They were preparing to watch and maybe record. Chase took a casual step closer. Then another. His smile grew wider. Because in his mind, he had already imagined exactly how the next few minutes would end. What he didn't know was that the muddy puddle he had chosen for his little prank was about to become the first piece of evidence in a chain of events that would eventually destroy everything he thought made him untouchable. The moment Chase Whitmore saw the muddy puddle beside the main walkway, the idea formed in his mind. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Chase had spent years doing exactly what he wanted at Westbridge Academy. And nobody had ever seriously challenged him. Students feared him. Teachers tolerated him. Administrators looked the other way whenever his name appeared in complaints. As far as Chase was concerned, the new girl standing in front of him was simply the next person about to learn how things worked at his school. Around them, students continued streaming through the front gate on their way to class. Yet more and more of them were slowing down. They sensed entertainment. They sensed drama. A growing circle began to form around Chase. Derek, Mason, and Nia. Some students exchanged knowing looks. Others quietly pulled out their phones. Nobody stepped forward to stop what was coming. At Westbridge, people learned very quickly that staying silent was safer than getting involved. Chase suddenly smiled and raised his hands in mock surrender. Hey, he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Derek and Mason exchanged amused glances. Nia didn't answer. For a brief moment, Chase almost looked sincere. The ground's pretty slippery today. He continued. I don't want you getting hurt on your first day. A few students laughed. Nia watched him carefully. His smile never reached his eyes. She knew exactly what kind of person he was. Still, she remained calm. I'll be fine, she replied. Chase stepped aside as if allowing her to pass. The crowd relaxed slightly. Some students thought perhaps the confrontation was over. Others knew Chase better. Nia walked forward. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. Then it happened. Chase suddenly shifted his weight and slammed his shoulder directly into her. The impact was hard enough to knock her completely off balance. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Nia's foot slipped on the wet pavement. Her backpack twisted sideways as she tried to catch herself. But there was no time. She fell backward and landed directly in the muddy puddle beside the walkway. Dirty water splashed everywhere. Mud stained her white shirt instantly. Her jeans were soaked. Dark streaks covered her hands, her hair, and part of her face. For a split second, silence hung in the air. Then the laughter started. Derek doubled over laughing. Mason slapped his knee. Several students burst into hysterics. Phones rose higher. Cameras zoomed in. Some students were already recording before Nia even pushed herself up. Others immediately started posting clips online. The humiliation spread faster than the mud covering her clothes. Lena Brooks stood frozen near the entrance steps. The sight made her stomach turn. She had seen this before. Different victim. Same people. Same crowd. Sam silence. Her fingers tightened around her books until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to help. She wanted to say something, but fear kept her rooted in place. Meanwhile, Chase slowly approached Nia as she sat in the mud. His expression was pure satisfaction. The crowd continued laughing behind him. "This," he said quietly enough that only she could hear, "is your first lesson." Nia looked up. Chase crouched slightly. "People like you should learn their place before they embarrass themselves." Derek and Mason continued filming from nearby. The humiliation couldn't have gone more perfectly. At least that's what Chase thought. Because while everyone else focused on the mud, Nia focused on something entirely different. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't begging anyone to help. Instead, she calmly placed one muddy hand against the pavement and pushed herself upright. The laughter slowly faded. Not because the crowd felt guilty, because they expected a reaction. Most people would have exploded. Most people would have broken down. Nia did neither. She simply stood there. Mud dripped from her sleeves. Water ran down her jeans. Her backpack hung awkwardly from one shoulder. Yet her expression remained completely composed. That unexpected calm made several students uncomfortable. Even Chase seemed slightly confused. Nia looked directly into his eyes. Then she spoke. "You just did that in front of a lot of witnesses." The words were simple, but something about the way she said them caused Chase to pause, only for a second. Then he laughed. Derek laughed too. Mason joined in. Soon the crowd was laughing once more. What Nia didn't know was that Chase had already thought about witnesses. In fact, he wasn't worried about them at all, because he knew something most students didn't. The security camera overlooking the entrance had a habit of being mysteriously offline every morning during maintenance checks. It happened often, and somehow, it always seemed to happen when Chase needed it most. So even if someone complained, there would be no official footage, no evidence, no proof, only conflicting stories. And at Westbridge Academy, Chase's version of events almost always won. "Good luck proving anything," he said with a grin. Then he turned away. Derek and Mason followed him. The crowd slowly began dispersing. Some students continued recording. Others immediately uploaded clips to social media. Within minutes, the entire school would be laughing at the new girl who had fallen into the mud on her first day. As Chase walked toward the main building, he felt completely satisfied. The lesson had been delivered. The new girl had been humiliated. The school had been entertained. The story was over. At least, that's what he believed. Behind him, Nia stood silently in the muddy puddle. But she wasn't watching Chase anymore. Instead, her eyes moved from phone to phone throughout the crowd, one student recording from the left, another recording from the stairs, a third recording from near the gate, a fourth standing beside the bicycle rack. On everyone. She noticed every camera pointed in her direction. And as she did, a small realization formed in her mind. Because while Chase thought the humiliation itself was the story, Nia was beginning to understand that the dozens of phones surrounding them might become something far more valuable than anyone realized, including Chase. By the time Nia stepped through the front doors of Westbridge Academy, the video had already started spreading. 5 minutes. That was all it took for her first day to stop being private and become school entertainment. The clip moved through phones faster than any announcement, faster than any warning, faster than the truth ever could. In the hallway, lockers slammed. Students gathered in tight groups, and almost every screen showed the same image: the new black girl sitting in the mud while laughter exploded around her. But it was not the real video. Derek Hale had posted the edited version in the Westbridge student group chat. He had cut out the moment Chase slammed his shoulder into Nia. He had removed the part where she lost her balance from the impact. What remained was a cruel little lie. Nia stepping near the puddle, slipping, falling, and then looking up as if she wanted attention. Under the clip, Derek had written one sentence that turned the entire school against her. New girl slips, then tries to blame Chase. Drama already. The comments appeared instantly. First day, and already embarrassing herself. Scholarship kids always want attention. She won't last a week here. Nia saw some of the posts before she even reached her locker assignment. Someone shoved a phone close enough for her to see the screen, then pulled it back while laughing. Another student pretended to slip dramatically in front of her, causing his friends to burst out laughing. A girl near the lockers whispered loudly that Nia would probably transfer before lunch. Nia kept walking. Mud still stained her white shirt. Her hair was damp. Her jeans clung heavily to her legs. Every step left a faint mark on the polished hallway floor. The school had expected her to look broken. They expected tears, anger, shame, maybe even a desperate attempt to explain herself. Instead, she gave them silence. That silence made some students laugh harder. It made others uncomfortable, because Nia was not acting like someone who had lost. At the end of the hallway, Chase Whitmore leaned against a row of lockers with Derek and Mason beside him. He was watching the reactions with the relaxed satisfaction of someone enjoying his own show. Every laugh, every comment, every repost fed his ego. In his mind, the story had already been written, and he was the one holding the pen. When Nia approached, Chase pushed away from the locker and stepped into her path again. "Rough morning," he asked. "Derek Schmierked. Careful? Floors are slippery in here too." Mason lifted his phone and replayed the clip loudly. The sound of laughter from the video echoed down the hallway. A few nearby students stopped to watch. Nia looked at the screen. Then at Chase. "Interesting edit," she said. Chase tilted his head. "Edit," he repeated, pretending to be confused. "That's a serious accusation." Derek laughed. Maybe the mud got in her eyes. More laughter. Chase stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound personal, while still letting the nearby students hear. "You need to understand something about Westbridge," he said. "Truth doesn't matter here the way you think it does." Nia didn't move. Chase smiled. "Truth belongs to whoever has more people willing to believe them." The hallway went quiet for half a second. It was not just a threat. It was a confession disguised as confidence. Nia studied his face. The smug smile, the relaxed shoulders, the complete absence of fear. He wasn't worried about cameras. He wasn't worried about witnesses. He wasn't worried about consequences. That told her something important. Chase had done this before, and he had gotten away with it before, from several feet away. Lena Brooks stood near her locker, holding her phone tightly in both hands. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. She had seen Derek's edited clip in the group chat, and she knew immediately what had been removed. Because Lena had the missing piece. When Chase pushed Nia, Lena had been standing near the entrance steps. She had started recording before the shove. Not because she wanted entertainment, but because she had learned to document anything involving Chase Whitmore. Her video showed everything. Chase stepping aside, Nia walking forward, Chase slamming his shoulder into her. The fall, the laughter, the whisper he leaned down to say afterward. It was all there. The real version, the truth. Her thumb hovered over the share button. For 1 second, she almost posted it. Then Chase's voice from months earlier echoed in her memory. "Nobody believes people like you when I say they're lying." Her hand trembled. She locked her phone. Across the hallway, Nia noticed the movement. She saw Lena's pale face, the way she clutched the phone, the way her eyes flicked nervously between Chase and the screen. Nia didn't know exactly what Lena had, but she knew fear when she saw it. And Lena was terrified for a reason. Chase turned back to the crowd. "Everyone should get to class," he said loudly. Wouldn't want the new girl blaming us for making her late, too. The crowd laughed again and began moving. Derek and Mason walked off with him. Still replaying the fake clip, Nia remained in the hallway for a moment, surrounded by whispers, muddy footprints, and the glow of screens that had already judged her. But she didn't chase Chase. She didn't defend herself to the crowd. She didn't demand that Lena speak. Not yet. Because Nia understood something. Chase clearly didn't. The more confident he became, the more careless he would be. The more he lied, the more contradictions he would create, and the longer he believed he controlled the story, the easier it would be to let him expose himself. So Nia picked up her backpack strap, turned toward her first class, and walked forward without lowering her head. Behind her, the fake video kept spreading. But somewhere in the hallway, on one frightened girl's phone, the real one was still waiting. The summons arrived before Nia had even finished her first class. A student aide appeared at the classroom door, carrying a small slip of paper, and handed it to the teacher. The room immediately became quiet. Several students looked up from their desks. Others already seemed to know what was happening. The teacher glanced toward Nia. "Principal Grant would like to see you in her office." A few students exchanged smirks. Someone whispered, "That was fast." Another quietly laughed. News traveled quickly at Westbridge Academy, especially when it involved public humiliation. By now, the edited video had spread across nearly every student phone on campus. To most people, the story seemed simple. A new girl had embarrassed herself in front of the school and was now causing trouble by refusing to accept it. Nia stood calmly and picked up her backpack. She wasn't surprised. What surprised her was how quickly the school had decided who the problem was. As she walked through the hallways toward the administration building, she noticed students watching her from every direction. Some stared openly. Others whispered behind their hands. A few even held up their phones to compare the muddy girl from the video to the person walking past them now. No one asked what had actually happened. No one wanted to hear her side. The edited version was easier. And easier stories usually won. When Nia entered Principal Evelyn Grant's office, she immediately understood the meeting was not going to be fair. Chase Whitmore was already sitting comfortably in one of the chairs. Derek Haile satt besidim. Mason Price occupied the other side of the room. All three looked relaxed, almost confident. A teacher from Gate Supervision stood near the window. Principal Grant sat behind a large mahogany desk, reviewing several documents. The moment Nia entered, Grant looked up. Her expression was serious. But not toward Chase, toward Nia. "Please sit down," Principal Grant said. Nia obeyed. The atmosphere felt less like an investigation and more like a trial that had already reached a verdict. Grant folded her hands together. "Miss Coleman, this is your first day at Westbridge Academy." "Yes. And unfortunately, you've already become involved in a significant disturbance." The wording immediately caught Nia's attention. Disturbance? Not assault. Not bullying. Not misconduct. Disturbance. As though everyone shared equal responsibility. Nia remained silent. Principal Grant turned toward Chase. "Would you like to explain what happened?" Chase nodded respectfully. The performance began. "I was simply trying to help," he said. His voice sounded calm and sincere, almost convincing. "The ground was wet. I warned her to be careful. Then she slipped." Derek immediately nodded. "That's exactly what happened." Mason followed. "We all saw it." Chase lowered his eyes slightly. "Honestly, I felt bad for her." The teacher near the window slowly nodded, as though considering his version. Nia almost admired how effortlessly he lied. Almost. Principal Grant turned toward her. Miss Coleman. Nia met the principal's gaze. "He pushed me." The room fell silent. Chase sighed dramatically. "There it is." Derek shook his head. Mason looked disappointed. The performance continued. Principal Grant leaned back in her chair. "Do you have proof?" The question hung heavily in the room. "Not what happened. Not whether she was okay. Not why multiple students were laughing while she sat in mud. Proof. Naya noticed something important. Nobody had asked Chase for proof. Only her. He deliberately hit me with his shoulder. Nia said. Chase laughed softly. I think she's embarrassed. Derek added. The whole thing's online. Mason nodded. Everyone saw what happened. Naya turned toward them. Everyone saw an edited video. For the first time, Chase's smile weakened slightly. Only slightly. Principal Grant raised an eyebrow. Edited Nia nodded. Someone removed the part where he made contact with me. The principal looked toward Chase. Chase remained perfectly calm. I have no idea what she's talking about. The lie came effortlessly. Too effortlessly. Nia could tell he had rehearsed situations like this before. Then she made a decision. Check the security cameras. The room became quiet again. For the first time, Chase's eyes narrowed slightly. Naya noticed. Principal Grant tapped her pen against the desk. That seems reasonable. Nia said nothing. Grant picked up her office phone and contacted campus security. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. Then she placed the receiver down. Something strange crossed her face. Not surprise. More like confirmation. As though she had expected the answer before she even made the call. The entrance camera was offline. Nobody spoke. Principal Grant continued. According to maintenance records, the camera lost signal 7 minutes before the incident. Naya frowned. Grant looked down at the report, and the connection returned shortly afterward. The room fell silent. 7 minutes before. Working again afterward. The timing was almost impossible, yet Chase suddenly relaxed. The tension vanished from his shoulders. That ex-schmierked. Mason looked relieved, and that told Nia everything she needed to know. They had expected this. They weren't surprised. Not even a little. Principal Grant folded the report. Without video evidence, this becomes a matter of conflicting accounts. Conflicting accounts. 3 witnesses supporting Chase. 1 student, standing alone. The outcome was obvious. Grant Sahil, I suggest both parties move forward and avoid further incidents. Naya stared at her. That was it? No investigation. No consequences. No questions about the edited video. No concern over the suspicious camera outage. Just move on. Chase stood. A satisfied smile slowly spread across his face. Victory. Again. As he walked past Nia toward the office door, he leaned slightly closer. Not enough for others to notice. Just enough for her to hear. Told you. Then he left. Derek and Mason followed. The door closed behind them. Principal Grant returned her attention to paperwork as though the matter had been settled. But Nia wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was focused elsewhere. 7 minutes. The camera disappeared exactly 7 minutes before the incident, then returned immediately afterward. That wasn't random. That wasn't bad luck. That wasn't a technical malfunction. It was a pattern, and judging by Chase's confidence, it wasn't the first time it had happened. As Nia stood to leave the office, she realized something that made her more determined than ever. The missing footage wasn't the real story. The real story was why the camera always seemed to disappear whenever Chase Whitmore needed it to. And somewhere inside Westbridge Academy, she suspected the answer had already been hidden for a very long time. Nia did not return to class right away. The moment she stepped out of Principal Grant's office, she knew the official system was not going to protect her. The meeting had told her everything she needed to know. The principal had not been shocked by the missing footage. Chase had not been worried. Derek and Mason had not looked surprised. That meant the camera outage was not a mistake. It was part of something familiar. Something practiced. Something that had worked before. She walked down the quiet hallway behind the administration office, still wearing the stained shirt beneath a borrowed jacket from the lost and found bin. The mud had dried in patches along her sleeves and jeans, but she barely noticed it anymore. Her mind was elsewhere. 7 minutes before the incident. Signal restored shortly afterward. A perfect gap. Too perfect. The school library sat at the end of the east wing, far from the noise of the main hallway. Naya pushed open the glass door and stepped inside. The room was calm, filled with rows of books, computer stations, and the faint smell of old paper. For the first time that morning, nobody laughed when she entered. Nobody lifted a phone. Nobody whispered her name. Behind the front desk, Mrs. Holloway, the school librarian, looked up from a stack of returned books. Her eyes immediately moved to the mud on Nia's clothes. Then to the expression on her face. "You must be Miss Coleman," she said gently. Nia paused. "Everyone knows already, Mrs." Holloway's face tightened. "At Westbridge, bad news. Travels fast. Truth travels much slower." Nia understood the warning hidden inside that sentence. She asked if she could use one of the student computers, and Mrs. Holloway nodded toward the back corner. Nia sat down, logged in, and began searching through the school's public campus safety resources. Most students would not think to look there. But Nia was not most students. At her previous school, she had worked with the Student Media Council, and part of that work involved learning how campuses documented camera zones, safety reports, and incident locations. Within minutes, she found a basic security map. The front gate camera was listed. So were the cafeteria cameras, the hallway stair cameras, the gym entrance cameras, and the rear parking lot camera. But what caught her attention was not the map itself. It was the maintenance notes attached to several camera zones. Camera offline routine system reset. Camera offline, network interruption. Camera offline, maintenance delay. The same language appeared again and again. Different dates, different locations, similar times. Early morning, lunch period. After school, times when students were moving. Crowds were thick, and bullying could hide inside chaos. Nia leaned closer to the screen. One location repeated more than the others. The rear hallway near the gym. Another camera outage. The cafeteria side entrance. Another. The stairwell behind the science wing. Another. A pattern began to form in front of her eyes. This was bigger than the puddle. Much bigger. Behind her, a soft voice whispered, "You shouldn't be looking at that." Nia turned. Lena Brooks stood between two shelves, clutching her phone so tightly her hands shook. Nia did not move too quickly. She could tell Lena was ready to run. "I'm not trying to get you in trouble," Nia said. Lena swallowed. "That's what everyone says before trouble finds you anyway." The fear in her voice was real. Nia closed the tab halfway, but kept the screen visible. "You know something?" Lena looked toward the library doors. No one was there. Still, she lowered her voice. "Chase did something like this to me last year." Nia waited. Lena's eyes filled with shame. Though she had done nothing wrong. It was near the gym hallway. He and Derek locked my backpack in the boys' locker room, then told everyone I had gone in there on purpose. People recorded me crying outside the door. I reported it. "What happened?" Lena gave a bitter little laugh. "The camera was offline." Nia's jaw tightened. Lena continued, her voice barely steady. "Principal Grant said there wasn't enough evidence. Then she called it a misunderstanding. My parents were told I had overreacted. I had to sign a statement saying I accepted mediation." Nia looked back at the maintenance notes on the screen. The rear hallway near the gym. Same pattern. Same excuse. Lena looked down at her phone. "I recorded what happened to you this morning." Nia became still. "The real version," Lena nodded. "You can see him push you." For the first time that day, Nia felt the shape of the truth close enough to touch. "Then send it to me." Lena's face changed instantly. Fear returned like a slammed door. "I can't." "Lena, you don't understand." Lena whispered. "Chase doesn't just embarrass people. He ruins them. He makes everyone laugh first. Then he makes the school call it your fault. Her voice cracked. I wanted to help you. He still do. But if he finds out I have it, he'll come after me again. Before Nia could answer, Mrs. Holloway appeared at the end of the aisle. She had heard enough to understand what was happening. But her expression showed she had been carrying this knowledge for much longer than either girl realized. Chase Whitmore has been protected for a long time, the librarian said quietly. Lena turned pale. Mrs. Holloway looked toward Nia. Last year, another student tried to report him. A boy named Marcus Ellery. Nia listened carefully. He was humiliated in the cafeteria, then blamed for starting the conflict. His family pushed for an investigation. What happened to him? Nia asked. Mrs. Holloway hesitated. He transferred 2 weeks later. The library seemed to grow colder. Nia asked. Was there a file, Mrs.? Holloway's eyes flicked toward the administration wing. There was, but it was locked after the board reviewed it privately. Staff were told not to discuss it. Lena covered her mouth. Nia slowly turned back toward the screen. The puddle. The edited video. The missing camera. Lena's story. Marcus Ellery. The sealed file. They were not separate incidents. They were pieces of the same machine. And suddenly, Nia understood the real fight in front of her. If she only proved Chase pushed her, the school might punish him lightly and bury the rest. But if she proved Westbridge Academy had been hiding these incidents for years, then Chase would not be the only one exposed. The entire system would crack open. Nia closed the security map and stood. Lena looked frightened. Mrs. Holloway said nothing. Then Nia looked toward the glass doors of the library. Through them, across the hallway, Chase Whitmore passed by with Derek and Mason, laughing as if nothing in the world could touch him. He did not see Nia watching. He did not know she had found the pattern, and he had no idea that the girl he had pushed into the mud was no longer just trying to clear her name. She was about to uncover everything Westbridge had buried. Lena Brooks spent the next hour pretending she was fine. She sat through class with her phone hidden beneath her notebook, her thumb hovering over the screen again and again. The video was still there. The real one, the one that showed Chase Whitmore slamming his shoulder into Nia before she fell into the mud. Every time Lena looked at it, her chest tightened. She knew what it could do. It could clear Nia's name. It could expose Chase. It could prove that everyone laughing in the hallway had been laughing at a lie. But it could also make Lena his next target again. By late morning, the guilt became heavier than the fear. Nia had not begged her. She had not pressured her. That somehow made it worse. Nia had simply looked at Lena like she already understood what fear could do to a person. That quiet understanding stayed with Lena longer than any accusation could have. During the passing period, Lena slipped into the girls' restroom near the rear hallway. It was one of the few places where students usually left each other alone. She locked herself in the farthest stall, opened the video, and watched it one more time. Chase moved clearly into Nia's path. His shoulder hit her hard. Nia fell. Derek laughed. Mason filmed. There was no confusion. No accident. No misunderstanding. Lena wiped her eyes and opened a message to Nia. I have the real video. I'm sending it now. Her finger trembled over the send button. Then someone knocked on the restroom door. Not the stall door. The main door. Once. Twice. Slowly. Lena? Chase's voice called from outside. We need to talk. Her blood went cold. She froze. Phone in hand, the door opened. Footsteps entered. More than one person. Derek's voice followed. You in here? Mason laughed under his breath. Of course she is. Where else do scared? Little witnesses hide. Lena quickly locked her phone and stepped out of the stall, trying to look confused. What are you doing in here? She asked. Though her voice shook, Chase leaned against the sink, completely relaxed. Derek stood near the door. Mason blocked the way out. It was not a conversation. It was a trap. Chase held up his own phone. "Funny thing," he said, "someone told me you were recording this morning." Lena's face drained of color. "I don't know what you're talking about." Chase smiled. "Don't insult me." He stepped closer. "You've always had that nervous little habit. You see something, you record it, then you act like you're brave for 2 seconds before remembering who runs this place." Lena backed up. "I didn't send anything." "Good." Chase said, "Then this will be easy." He nodded to Mason. Before Lena could react, Mason snatched the phone from her hand. "Give it back!" she cried. Derek moved closer to the door, making sure no one entered. Mason unlocked the screen when he saw the video still open in the recent files. His grin widened. "Well, look at that." Chase took the phone and watched the first few seconds. For the first time that day, his expression changed. Not fear, anger. The video showed everything. His perfect lie suddenly had an enemy. He looked up at Lena. "You were really going to ruin your life for the new girl." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "She didn't do anything to you." Chase laughed softly. "Neither did you last year. Didn't stop things from getting worse." Did it? That broke something in Lena. Her breathing became uneven. Derek leaned in, his voice low and cruel. "If you say one word, we'll make sure everyone remembers you again. Only this time, you'll be Nia number 2. Mason held the phone out. Lena shook her head. Chase's smile disappeared. "Or I send everyone that old cafeteria clip of you crying. The one you begged people to forget?" Lena covered her mouth. Nia had been right. Chase didn't just embarrass people. He kept their humiliation like weapons. Slowly, Lena took the phone with shaking hands. She opened the video file. Her thumb hovered over delete. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then she deleted it. Mason checked the gallery. Derek checked the recently deleted folder and cleared that too. Chase watched until there was nothing left. Only then did he smile again. "See," he said. "Much better." He stepped past her toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. "And Lena," she looked up, "don't try to be brave. It doesn't fit you." Then they were gone. Lena stood alone in the restroom, shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. The video was gone. The proof was gone. And with it, she believed Nia's only chance had disappeared. But Chase had made one mistake. A serious one. He had forced Lena to delete the file from her phone. But he had never asked where the phone had saved it before deletion. Minutes later, Lena found Nia near the back stairwell. She was pale, crying, and barely able to speak. At first, all she could say was, "I'm sorry." Nia gently pulled her away from the open hallway. "What happened?" "They took my phone," Lena whispered. "They saw the video. They made me delete it." Nia's face hardened. "Did they threaten you?" Lena nodded. "Derek said they'd make me the next you." Nia went very still. That changed everything. This was no longer only about the shove. This was witness intimidation. Lena wiped her face. "It's gone. They cleared everything." Nia looked at her phone. "Do you use automatic backup?" Lena blinked through tears. "I don't know. Maybe. My school email saves some media sometimes for assignments." Nia's eyes sharpened. "Your school email?" Lena nodded. "It's connected to the student cloud. But teachers can monitor it. The administration can too." For a moment, neither girl spoke. Then Nia understood. If Lena's phone had backed up the video before Chase forced her to delete it, the file might still exist somewhere on the school server. And if the administration could monitor it, then someone at Westbridge might already know the real video existed. Nia looked toward the administration hallway. The situation had just become far more dangerous. Chase thought he had destroyed the last piece of evidence. But by threatening Lena and forcing her to delete the video, he had created something even stronger than footage of the shove. He had created proof that he knew the video could expose him. And if that deleted file was still sitting in the school's cloud system, then Chase had not erased the truth. He had only moved it somewhere bigger. By lunchtime, Chase Whitmore was tired of hearing whispers that did not belong to him. At first, he had enjoyed the attention. The fake video had spread exactly the way he wanted. Students laughed when Nia walked past. Some replayed the clip near their lockers just to see if she would react. But after the office meeting, something shifted. People were still talking. But now their voices carried questions. Why had the camera failed at the exact moment of the incident? Why had Nia looked so calm? Why had Lena Brooks been crying near the back stairwell? Chase hated questions, so he decided to replace them with humiliation. The cafeteria was packed when Nia entered. Long tables stretched across the room, filled with students eating, laughing, and scrolling through their phones. The smell of fries, hot food, and spilled soda filled the air. Teachers stood near the walls, pretending to supervise. But their eyes were mostly on clipboards and conversations. Westbridge always looked controlled from a distance. Up close, it was chaos, wearing a school uniform. Nia took a tray and sat alone near the middle section of the cafeteria. She did not hide in a corner. She did not rush through lunch. That alone annoyed Chase. Derek noticed it too. She really thinks she's not embarrassed, he muttered. Mason picked up a tray from a nearby trash cart. It was covered with leftover food, soggy napkins, and sauce smeared across the plastic. Chase smiled. Then let's remind her. The three boys walked straight toward Nia's table. The cafeteria noise began to fade before they even reached her. Students turned. Phones appeared again. Everyone knew that look on Chase's face. It was the same look he wore before something cruel happened, and everyone later pretended they had only been watching. Chase stopped in front of Nia and dropped the dirty tray onto the table with a loud slap. Leftover food slid across the surface. A few students gasped. Derek laughed. Mason leaned down and said, "Looks familiar. Right, Mud?" "Trash." "Same thing." Chase tilted his head, pretending to study Nia's clothes. "Honestly, this suits you better than Westbridge." The cafeteria went silent. Even some of the students who had laughed that morning looked uncomfortable now. There was something different about doing it again. The first time, they could pretend it was a joke or an accident. This time, there was no accident to hide behind. Lena sat 2 tables away, her face pale. Her hands trembled around her lunch carton. She knew exactly what Chase was doing. He was trying to crush Nia publicly before anyone else dared question him. Nia looked at the tray. Then she looked up at Chase. She did not shout. She did not throw the tray back. She did not give him the reaction he wanted. Instead, she slowly stood. The silence in the cafeteria deepened. Nia's voice was calm when she spoke. "Are you sure you want to keep going?" A few students glanced at each other. Chase laughed loudly, as if the question itself was ridiculous. "Keep going," he repeated. "You still don't get it, do you?" He turned slightly so the whole cafeteria could hear him. "No one believes you." Derek pointed at her. "They saw the video." Mason added, "You slipped. You lied. Now you're trying to act tough." Chase stepped closer. "At Westbridge, reputation matters. And yours was finished before first period." Nia looked around the cafeteria. At the phones, at the teachers pretending not to hear, at Lena, frozen with fear, at the students who wanted the truth but were too scared to ask for it. Then Nia reached into her backpack and pulled out her laptop. Chase smirked. "What are you going to do, show everyone?" "Your diary." Nia opened the laptop without answering. A few students leaned forward. One of the teachers finally stepped away from the wall. "Miss Coleman." "What are you doing?" Nia typed quickly. During enrollment that morning, she had been issued a temporary student media account because her previous school records listed her as a student communications assistant. It gave her limited access to cafeteria display announcements Lunch menus, club schedules, and presentation screens. Limited access was still access. The large cafeteria monitor flickered. Chase's smile faded. The school lunch menu disappeared. A blank screen appeared. Then a document opened. Not the video. Not yet. Instead, rows of dates appeared across the screen. Security camera maintenance exceptions. The cafeteria went completely quiet. Naya clicked once. The list expanded. Front gate camera offline. 742 rear gym hallway camera offline. 0. 8212. 19. Cafeteria side entrance camera offline. 1, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 4, 1. Science wing stairwell camera offline. 4, 3, 2, 2. More dates followed. More locations. More perfectly timed gaps. The same phrase repeated over and over. Routine system reset. Network interruption. Maintenance delay. Students began whispering. Wait. That's the same thing from this morning. Why are there so many? That happened when Marcus transferred. Right. Chase's face hardened. Derek stopped laughing. Mason looked toward the nearest teacher. Nia turned from the screen back to Chase. You said truth belongs to whoever has more people willing to believe them. Her voice stayed level. Let's see how many people still believe you after they see the pattern. The cafeteria erupted into whispers. Lena stared at the screen. Stunned. For the first time, she realized Nia was not just defending herself. She was connecting everything. Chase took a step forward. Turn that off. Naya didn't move. The teacher hurried toward the monitor, but several students were already recording the screen. This time, they were not filming Nia's humiliation. They were filming the evidence. Chase looked around and saw something he had never seen before. Doubt. Not fear. Not laughter. Doubt. It moved through the cafeteria faster than the fake video had moved through the hallway. And in that moment, Chase finally understood that Nia Coleman was not reacting to him. She was studying him. She was building a case. She was turning his own school into a witness. The dirty tray still sat between them, but nobody was looking at it anymore. Everyone was looking at the screen, and Chase Whitmore, for the first time that day, realized the new girl was not simply trying to survive Westbridge. She was investigating him. Richard Whitmore arrived at Westbridge Academy less than 20 minutes after the cafeteria incident. He did not come through the student entrance. He did not wait at reception like an ordinary parent. His black car stopped directly in front of the administration building, and when he stepped out in an expensive Navy suit, 2 office staff members immediately rushed to open the door for him. By the time Nia was called back to Principal Grant's office, Chase was already sitting beside his father. The difference in his confidence was obvious. In the cafeteria, he had looked angry. Now, with Richard Whitmore beside him, he looked untouchable again. Principal Evelyn Grant stood near her desk. Her voice, softer than it had been that morning. Miss Coleman, she said, we need to resolve this before it becomes more damaging. Nia stepped into the room and noticed the guidance counselor sitting quietly near the wall. The woman would not meet her eyes. Richard Whitmore looked Nia up and down as if she were a problem someone had brought into his building. So this is the girl, he said. Nia did not answer. Richard turned to Principal Grant. My son's name is being dragged through the school because a transfer student decided to turn a small accident into a public spectacle. Chase lowered his eyes. Performing innocence again. Nia looked at him. He almost smiled. Richard placed a folder on the table. My family has supported Westbridge for years. Athletic renovations, scholarship events, technology upgrades. We have invested too much into this institution to let one student damage its reputation on her first day. There it was. Not concern. Not truth. Reputation. Principal Grant cleared her throat. We're hoping both sides can agree to a mediation statement. She slid a paper toward Nia. The wording was careful. polished, and dishonest. It said the incident had been a misunderstanding. It said both students regretted escalating the situation. It said Nia agreed to remove all related material from public view. Nia read it once. Then she looked up. "You want me to apologize for being pushed into the mud?" Richard's expression hardened. "We want you to stop making accusations you cannot prove." Nia's voice remained calm. "The fake video is still circulating. The camera logs show repeated failures." And Chase threatened a witness. Chase sat up. "That's a lie." Richard slammed his hand lightly against the table. "Enough. If your family continues this, we will pursue legal action." Principal Grant quickly added, "Miss Coleman, signing this protects your future too." Nia stared at the paper. Then she pushed it back across the desk. "No." The room went silent. Richard narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me." "No." Nia repeated, "I'm not signing a lie." Principal Grant's face tightened. "Think carefully." "I am." Nia said, "If Westbridge does not open a formal investigation today, I will send the camera outage records, the edited video, and every witness statement I can collect outside this school." Richard leaned forward. "You have no idea who you're challenging." For the first time, Nia allowed the smallest hint of a smile. "You're right," she said, "but you don't know who came with me." Chase's confidence flickered. Richard Whitmore had walked into Westbridge believing money could bury anything. What he did not know was that Nia Coleman had not walked into this school alone. The small conference room beside the principal's office felt colder than the rest of Westbridge Academy. Nia sat at one end of the table, still calm, while Chase sat near his father with the same forced confidence he had worn all morning. Principal Grant stood near the wall with two school board representatives, her face tight with concern. Richard Whitmore looked impatient, as if the meeting itself was an insult to his time. Then the door opened. Attorney Camille Coleman walked in carrying a thick folder under one arm. She did not rush. She did not shout. She did not look frightened by the expensive suit. The polished table, or the powerful parent waiting across from her? She simply entered the room, closed the door behind her, and placed the folder in front of the board representatives. Nia looked at her mother but said nothing. Camille gave her a brief nod. That was enough. Richard frowned. "And you are Camilla Coleman," she said. "Nia's mother, attorney for the Coleman family, and currently legal counsel for several families with complaints against Westbridge Academy." The room changed instantly. Principal Grant's face lost color. Chase looked at his father. Richard leaned back slowly. "So this was planned." Camille opened the folder. "My daughter transferring here was planned," she said. Chase Whitmore pushing her into the mud was not. The sentence landed hard. No anger. No drama. Just a fact. Richard pointed toward Nia. "You used your own child to create a case against this school." Camille looked at him calmly. "No. Mr. Whitmore, your son created the case when he assaulted a student, helped circulate an edited video, and then allowed a witness to be threatened." Chase immediately snapped. "That's not true." Camille did not even look at him. She slid several papers across the table. "These are prior complaints involving your son, gym hallway intimidation, cafeteria humiliation, a student forced into mediation after reporting harassment, a transfer request filed 2 weeks after a sealed disciplinary review." One board member picked up the documents. Principal Grant tried to interrupt. Those matters were handled internally. Camille turned to her. "That is exactly the problem." Silence filled the room. Lena Brooks stood near the doorway, barely breathing. She had been asked to come in as a witness, but every part of her wanted to disappear. Chase's eyes found her immediately, sharp and warning. Camille noticed. "So," she said, closing the folder halfway, "we can discuss reputation, donations, and misunderstandings all afternoon." Or we can discuss evidence. Richard's jaw tightened. One board representative looked toward Lena. "Miss Brooks," he said carefully, "we were told you may have recorded the original incident." Lena's hands began to shake. Chase stared at her. Derek and Mason were not in the room, but their threats still echoed in her mind. Nia turned slightly toward Lena. She did not beg. She did not pressure her. She only said, "You don't have to be afraid alone." Lena's eyes filled with tears. Everyone waited, because now the entire room understood the same thing. The case no longer depended on Chase's story. It depended on the frightened girl standing by the door, holding the key to the truth. Lena Brooks stood at the front of the conference room, with every eye fixed on her. Her hands were shaking so badly that Camille gently moved a glass of water closer to her. Chase sat across the table, staring at her with a warning in his eyes. He did not need to speak. Lena remembered the restroom. She remembered Mason grabbing her phone. She remembered Derek saying they would make her the next Nia. For a moment, fear almost won. "I deleted it," Lena whispered. "They made me delete it." Chase leaned back, pretending to look relieved. Richard Whitmore immediately seized the moment. "Then there is no video. This meeting is becoming a circus." But Nia stepped closer to Lena. "You don't have to be strong by yourself," she said quietly. "Just tell the truth." Lena looked at her, tears rising again. "They took my phone," she said. "They made me erase the file, but my account sometimes backs up videos automatically. I don't know if it saved this one." Camille turned to the board. "Then we need the school's IT records." Now, Principal Grant stiffened. "That may involve student privacy protocols." Camille looked at her. A student was assaulted, a witness was threatened, and the possible evidence is on a school-managed account. Preserve the file before anyone else deletes it. The board chair ordered the IT specialist to enter the room. Within minutes, a nervous technician connected a laptop to the large screen. The room fell completely silent as he opened Lena's school cloud account and searched through the backup folder. One file appeared. The timestamp matched the morning incident. Lena covered her mouth. Chase stopped moving. The technician clicked play. The screen filled with the front walkway outside Westbridge Academy. Nia walked forward. Chase stepped aside. Then, clearly, deliberately, he shifted his shoulder and slammed into her. Nia fell into the mud. Derek lifted his phone and laughed. Mason pointed at her. Chase leaned down and said something too low for the camera to catch. But the cruelty on his face was impossible to miss. No one spoke. The fake story died in that room. Richard's face turned red. That angle proves nothing about intent. Camille calmly raised one hand. "Keep watching." The video continued. Nia stood, covered in mud, and said, "You just did that in front of a lot of witnesses." Then the clip ended, before Richard could speak again. The IT specialist hesitated. "There's another file," he said. Principal Grant's eyes widened. He clicked it. This time, the sound came from Lena's phone, accidentally recording in her pocket near the rear stairwell. Chase's voice filled the room. "Or, I send everyone that old cafeteria clip of you crying." Derek followed. "If you say one word, we'll make you Nia number 2. The room froze. Chase's face went blank. Richard Whitmore stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. That recording was taken without consent. Camille turned to him. "Your son was threatening a witness?" For the first time all day, Richard had no polished answer. Chase looked down at the table. The boy who had laughed at Nia in the mud could not even lift his eyes. But Camille was not finished. She turned toward Principal Grant. "The push is now proven. The witness intimidation is now proven. So let's discuss the camera failures." Principal Grant's face went pale. Because the truth about Nia's fall was only the first door opening. And behind it was something Westbridge had been hiding for years. The expanded hearing was held in the school auditorium the following afternoon. What began as a single incident involving a muddy puddle had grown into something far larger. Students filled the seats. Teachers stood along the walls. Members of the school board sat at the front. For the first time in years, Westbridge Academy was being forced to listen. After the restored video was shown internally, something changed. Fear began to lose its grip. Unbewan, students who had stayed silent stepped forward. A former athlete described how Chase and his friends had locked him inside a locker room storage area and convinced everyone it was a prank. A female student admitted she had been publicly humiliated in the cafeteria, only to be pressured into signing a voluntary mediation agreement that prevented further complaints. Each story sounded different, yet the pattern remained. The same humiliation. Intimidation. Silence. Then Lena Brooks stood up. The auditorium became quiet. For more than a year, she had carried her fear alone, with trembling hands and tears in her eyes. She admitted that she had spent months avoiding hallways, avoiding attention, and avoiding the truth, because she believed nobody would protect her. She described the threats, the pressure, and the moment Chase forced her to delete the video. Across the room, Chase sat motionless. For the first time, nobody was listening to him. Principal Grant attempted to defend herself. She insisted she had not known the full extent of the problem and claimed many reports had never reached her desk. But Camille Coleman calmly stood and placed several printed emails before the board. The messages showed complaints sent directly to the principal's office months earlier. Some had received no response at all. A murmur spread through the auditorium. The evidence was impossible to ignore. After a brief private discussion, the board returned with its decision. Chase Whitmore and Mason Price were placed on immediate suspension, pending further disciplinary action. A formal investigation into Principal Grant's conduct and handling of student complaints was also opened. For many students, it felt like justice. But as the room slowly emptied, Nia remained seated. She had never wanted revenge alone. Punishment could remove a bully. It could not fix a broken system. And as she looked around the auditorium, Nia knew the real fight was no longer about Chase Whitmore. It was about making sure no student at Westbridge would ever be forced into silence again. A few days after the hearing, Nia Coleman returned to Westbridge Academy through the same front gate where everything had begun. The sky was clear now. The walkway had been cleaned. The muddy puddle was gone, washed away and covered with fresh gravel. But even without the mud, everyone remembered exactly where she had fallen. This time, no one laughed. Students who had once pointed phones at her now lowered their eyes as she passed. Some looked ashamed. Others stepped aside quietly, unsure what to say. The same courtyard that had once turned her pain into entertainment now felt heavy with silence. Nia noticed it all. But she did not stop walking. Near the entrance steps, Lena Brooks waited for her. "I'm sorry," Lena said, her voice soft. "I should have helped you sooner." Nia looked at her for a moment, then shook her head gently. "You were scared," she said. "That doesn't make you weak." Lena's eyes filled with tears. Nia continued. "Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about telling the truth, even when you are..." Those words stayed in the air longer than either girl expected. Across the courtyard, Chase Whitmore stood near the side entrance. He was alone. Derek and Mason were not beside him. There was no crowd laughing at his jokes. No phone recording for his entertainment. No teacher pretending not to see. His power had vanished, the moment the truth became louder than his name. For a second, his eyes met Nia's. She did not glare at him. She did not smile. She simply looked at him like he was no longer important. Then she turned away. A new student safety coordinator stood near the gate, speaking with a teacher about camera access, reporting policies, and student protection. The school was changing. Slowly but visibly. It would not erase what happened, but it meant the next student might not have to stand alone. Nia stepped onto the walkway. The same path, the same school, but not the same girl. No one pushed her this time. No one blocked her way. She walked forward with her head high, passing the place where she had once been thrown into the mud. The girl who had been turned into a joke in 5 minutes had forced an entire school to remember her for something stronger. Because mud can stain clothes, but it can never bury the truth when someone is brave enough to stand back up. What started as a cruel attempt to humiliate a new black girl ended up exposing years of silence, fear, and abuse hidden behind the walls of Westbridge Academy. Nia Coleman proved that real strength isn't about getting revenge, it's about standing up for the truth, even when everyone else wants you to stay quiet. In the end, the people who laughed the loudest were forced to face the consequences of their own actions. While the girl they underestimated became the reason change finally happened. Now we want to hear from you. If you had been standing there that day, would you have spoken up for Nia or stayed silent like everyone else? Let us know in the comments below. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of justice, courage, and unexpected comebacks. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.